Um, well, thank you, for taking time out of this lovely weather to have a chat. Obviously, we're here to talk about Fear Below, which I think, despite its post World War II setting, it
Mm.
feels oddly relevant. Given some of the issues that it tackles. There's a strong thread of racism, of sexism. Was that something that drew you to the project? That although it was set in the past, it was something that kind of mirrors society right now still.
Definitely. I think also, I think it felt quite original in the time setting. I hadn't really seen that kind of genre during that time, and I think that was also quite interesting. And also, yeah, the history of what was going on at the time. Clara being part of the Women's Land Army, and yeah, Jacob's part, his struggle in terms of how he's treated in his own country was definitely something I found interesting, and the fact that women as well weren't supposed to be divers, they weren't supposed to be involved in that sort of lifestyle, and I think she felt very original in that sense and very independent and forthcoming in her life choices.
Really. I mean, you flew halfway around the world to become Clara. What was it about her that spoke to you and made you want to play her?
Um, I thought she was an interesting character. I don't think during that time you necessarily stuff that's set during that period you necessarily see women like that. And I liked how she'd ended up there in life. I think, the diving squad she's with is not the sort of the best. It's quite a ragtag bunch. And I think that she, along with Ernie as well, is someone that craves family and belonging. And I think that was something I found really interesting about her character as well.
Yeah, because they are this kind of family unit. As much as they kind of work together, they are this kind of found family, which I think again is something that is lovely to see represented on screen because it doesn't always have to be the people that you grow up with. It's those people that you find along the way that you share those passions and dreams with.
Definitely. Yeah.
And you previously worked on the fantastic Sea Fever, which is obviously another nautical based story.
Yeah.
Did the experience shooting that film kind of help prepare you with being sort of in and around the water again this time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I didn't actually do diving for this, whereas for Sea Fever, I trained to dive, and we were in these amazing tanks in Sweden, and yeah, I basically I learned, got my paddy, and actually relearned because I got my paddy for doing King Arthur actually in like however many years ago that was. And so for this, we actually shot everything dry for wet. So we were in the full suits, which are so heavy, like those helmets and everything. But we had to sort of, yeah, dry for wet, basically pretend we were underwater whenever we were shooting any of that. But I definitely think doing Sea Fever gave me a leg up in terms of knowing about diving and that sort of thing. So obviously, Clara is an expert in that.
I mean, that was kind of my next question was, although there are these sequences of diving, you guys, like you say, you were doing dry for wet. How do you prepare for that as an actor? Because, you're kind of having to act against an element that isn't there.
Yeah, I think I can't remember how I remember speaking to Matt, the director, about it, about how they were going to do it in post. I don't think we were moving in slow motion, but I think because the gear was so heavy, you almost were moving at that pace. Um, and then in terms of preparation, I looked everywhere online for stuff, and you could find a bit about diving in that time, but it's hard to find a lot of information on it because it is very different from today how they used to do it. I mean, they literally used to pump, like you see in the film, them standing up pumping the air into the into the suit. So it was a very obviously rudimentary version of what we do today. But yeah, once we got on set and could see the equipment, that really helped as well, I think.
Well, it is fascinating the way that they did, like those suits. I mean, I'm horribly claustrophobic, and you'd never catch me anywhere near there. But the fact that people did just strap them on and then go for a walk in the river, in the sea, whatever. It's amazing to think that we've kind of gone from there to where we're at these days with diving.
Totally. Yeah, it's a totally different game.
And Fear Below straddles the narrative line between a gangster film and a shark film. I think each of these subgenres are incredibly popular. You go into, a HMV or whatever, or a streaming platform. and the shelves are aligned with films that are either or. What do you think that kind of mixing them together brings for the audience?
I think I think lots of shark films are set maybe at sea or in quite desolate places, whereas I feel like bringing the gangster element adds a level of trepidation that wouldn't necessarily be there without it. Because, if you don't have the gangsters there, then they can just leave, and they wouldn't continue to dive. And I think it raises the threat level for the audience.
I think it's kind of it's nice to kind of see sharks represented in this kind of way. I think obviously, looking from Jaws and then through like Deep Blue Sea and the Shallows, the sharks are the aggressor in these sorts of films. But as you say, in this one, it is the gangsters that are keeping them there, and it's kind of the shark isn't the threat; it's man, which I think is again is a nice kind of modern message about what man is doing to the ocean in a way.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, the bull shark's minding her own business, I think. Yeah.
And obviously, I said, you flew halfway across the world to play Clara. What was it like sort of filming in Australia? Because I mean, I'm a horrible arachnophobe. You will never ever catch me in Australia. But I mean, there's so much stuff in Australia. There's all the memes and stuff about everything wants to kill you. But what was it like, sort of like being there? And you were on location for a lot. How was that experience?
Well, I first went to Australia when I was 19, and I loved it. Then I traveled around just as a tourist, and then so for this time I sort of knew where I was going back to, but it was very different. And we were shooting in Echuca, which was like not it's a smallish town, very beautiful town, but very small. And then we ended up moving up to Gundawindi because of flooding in Echuca. And they in Gundawindi we were really in the bush. We were out in the middle of nowhere. And that was an amazing experience. I mean, I love adventure in different places, so for me that was a real treat. But I was the only Brit, and I definitely got a lot of teasing as the only Brit, not knowing about what I was asking about, because I saw four brown snakes during the flooding because they all came out because they were all moving because of the floods. And the only thing you hear about brown snakes is that if they bite you, you're dead within 15 minutes. So I kept on asking questions, being like, so what do we do? But what do we do if we get bitten? What do we do? And everyone there is so relaxed. I think you have to just sort of lean into it and just be as relaxed because there's nothing really else to do.
Terrifying. And as an actor, you've traversed a multitude of genres. You've done sci-fi, horror, drama, romance, and you've also gone, including this one, gone across a lot of time periods. I think some actors kind of find their niche and comfortably kind of play variations of the same role over and over again. Why is it important for you that you kind of diversify your roles?
Um, I I like change and adventure, and I think it's much more interesting to try. The reason I like acting is I like exploring different people's minds and understanding people. So that's why I'm drawn to certain stories or characters. And the more different the mind, the more interesting to me. So I would much rather play lots of different people and be able to research and understand lots of different people, I would say.
I guess that's a great sort of benefit of being an actor. You can step into the shoes of a load of different roles. Like you say, you learnt diving for King Arthur and revisited for Sea Fever and this, and then there must be other abilities and talents that you've kind of picked up along the way. It must be just, like you're always in school in a way.
You are always in school and you're always learning. And I think that's also one of the exciting things is, yeah, you're learning about a new country or you move to a city to film for 2 months and suddenly you're living in a completely new place. And that I think is a huge benefit of the job for sure.
And you've recently stepped behind the camera with your short film, The Mega Gulper 3000. How did you find that experience? And because you were writing and directing as well as starring, and is that something that you want to get involved with more in the future of your career?
Definitely. I'm currently writing the feature version, which I'm developing at the moment of that film, and it's something that interests me hugely. Whether that's writing and directing or writing and acting. I think I did it for that short film because obviously it was only a sort of 2-day shoot. But it would be a huge challenge to do that in a feature, but I think I definitely want to do a lot more writing and directing, and possibly writing for myself, possibly writing for other people. Yeah.
And I guess my final question, going back to Fear Below, why do you hope that viewers take a chance on this film? Like I said, there's lots of kind of shark films out there. What is this one got that some of the other ones don't have, do you think?
I think it feels original in its setting and time period. I think it also has a really lovely heart at the center of it with the family unit that they formed. And I think it's a nice form of escapism in that, shark films are, I think, a form of escapism, but also because they kind of tap into the primal feelings, and I think that um is nice for people. But I also think it feels like escapism because of the setting and the characters. That's got I think quite a nostalgic feel to it as well in terms of the style of the filming. And I think that for people will be what they enjoy and what feels original.
I think it's got a lot of broad appeal as well in terms of audiences because of that period setting. You've got those people who are fascinated with post-war
Yeah,
and with that era that they can go into it, enjoy the period setting of it all without the gangster element, without the shark element. So I think it does kind of traverse a lot of audiences as well, which is really really nice to see from a genre film.
I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I wish you best of luck with the film and best of luck with the work on the feature for the short. And I look forward to seeing what you do in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kat. Lovely to meet you.